When you say Telly, you mean Telly Hankton? Yes. Who else was dealing drugs on Josephine Street when you were living there? Everybody. Ennis, Dump, Nakia, Terrell, Trell, my children's father, Durney, Damien, Buki, all us. Pluck. Pluck? Yes. Pluck? Do you know Pluck's real name? His government name? Brian Broussard. So when Pluck was dealing drugs on Josephine Street back then, who was he getting his drugs from? Telly. What was primarily the drug of choice on Josephine Street to sell? Crack cocaine. And who provided all those people that you just named who were selling on Josephine Street? Who was their main source of supply? Telly Hankton. When you started dealing drugs, what kind of quantities were you selling? Just a quarter. I ain't have too much money. What does a quarter mean to a person who not familiar with crack cocaine? Just a little, $200 worth, where you can make $400. So will you pay how much for a quarter? $200. How much could you sell that for? I would make $400. How often will you purchase a quarter of crack cocaine? Probably like 3 times a week if I wanted a good weekend. When you would purchase crack cocaine on Josephine Street, would you actually buy it as crack or buy it as powder? Most of the time it was in powder and you get it cooked. I'm sorry, what? Most of the time it was powder and you can get it cooked up to crack cocaine. Is there a process that powder becomes crack? Yes. Would you do that yourself? No. Who will you get to do that? People in the neighborhood, like other dealers or people who are on crack. They will cook it for you. You just break them off a piece. Can you describe a little bit how you would actually get drugs from Telly Hankton? He would come in our house in 2011. It wasn't just me buying it. He wasn't just going to come for me. He would come for Inez or Dump or somebody. And I just throw my $200 at him and get my little piece. So you used the word Inez. Do you know his real name? Anthony Commodore. He was also selling drugs on Josephine Street? Yes. So in the hierarchy of selling drugs on Josephine Street, where did you fall? At the low rank. Does that mean because you were selling smaller quantities? Yes. Were there other people on Josephine Street who were selling larger quantities? Yes. Who would they be? Telly, Dump, Derek, and Anthony Commodore. Did Telly have a relationship with any of your brothers? Was he friends with your brothers? He was friends with all my brothers. Was he at one point in time friends with your brother Darnell? Yes. What about your oldest brother Arthur or Bunky? Yes, I pretty much know he grew up with Bunky more than he grew up with me because they are the same age. Has Buki since been killed? Yes, he was killed. And what year was he killed? 2002. The individuals who were selling larger quantities, like you said, Ennis, Anthony Commodore, and Dump, what kind of quantities were they buying? They were buying like a half a key. A half a key? Meaning a kilogram? A half a kilo, yeah. And would they buy powder or were they buying half a kilo of crack? Powder. It was powder form. How do you know that they were getting supplied with those amounts? Because the drug deals went down in my house. I was there all the time. Now, since you have already testified you didn't really have adult supervision in your house, was that a safe place for you all to do your drug trafficking activities? To look back on it, no. But how we felt at the time, yeah. When you said that they did the drug deals at your house, what does that mean? Who would give them the drugs at your house? Telly would just come there and give them what I guess they ordered because he already came with what they needed or whatever. When you say he, can you use the name? Telly. He would come with the drugs. They probably already talked about it, and Inez will have the money or Derek will have the money in the living room, and they would just trade off, and he would go back out the door. Sometimes he would sit for a little while and laugh and talk, but most of the time he would just do what he had to do and go back out the door. Do you know how much money they were paying for half a kilo? Probably $7,000, $8,000. How often had you seen this while living at 2011 Josephine Street? I think off and on over the years, probably like 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes between different people. That you could think of, was anybody else buying that kind of quantity from Telly on Josephine Street specifically, besides Anthony Commodore and Derek's mothers? Not in our house that I know of, because they were the only ones in our house buying that kind of quantity. You had mentioned Pluck, Brian Broussard, and your brother Darnell. What kind of quantities of cocaine or crack were they buying from Telly back in those days? They would probably buy like a 4 and a quarter. That's 4 quarters besides my one. They would probably buy like 4. How much would that cost? $1,000. Again, would this take place in your house? Yes. Where would you all actually sell the drugs? On a porch on Josephine, 2011 porch. Now, you had identified a photograph of Telly's mother. Where did she live? When I was coming up, she stayed around the corner on St. Andrew. But as the years went by, he bought our house on Josephine. Who bought a house? Telly bought his mama a house on Josephine. Okay. And was that house close to where you were living at 2011? Yes. It was the 2800 block of Josephine. If I can show you what's been marked as Government Exhibit 48, do you recognize that? Yes, but at the time, it was like a powder blue color. If I could show Exhibit 48, please. Whose house is that? That's Telly Hankton's mom's house. If I can show you 49, which I know is in a different color. If I can admit 48, Your Honor. So ordered. Do you recognize 49? Yes. What do you recognize that to be? That's 2011. It looks pretty different, but it's 2011. Can you please put up 49? And you say 2011. Is that where you used to live? Yes. In 2011, when looking at the photograph, is on which side? It's on my left-hand side. You say it looks pretty different. In what way does it look different? It have a white fence on it. It was all brown. It have gated windows and a gate on the door. It didn't have it. And it has shutters on the windows from the side. We didn't have that neither. So the house has been changed from when you were living there. Yes. And how long did you live at 2011 Josephine Street? From 96 to 2003. So if I could step back a little bit to talk about Brian Broussard or Pluck, around 2003 or early on, who was he really hanging out with mostly? He was hanging with Rodney Robinson. Does he have a nickname? He go by Dudu. Was he friends with Derek and Terrell and any of those other individuals you identified? Yes, we all was friends. Was he around the same age as you? He a little younger. No, he probably like 6 years younger than me. 6, 7 years younger than me. And so would he be quite a bit younger than Telly? All the way younger than Telly. Now, when dealing drugs on Josephine Street, it sounds like a lot of people were dealing drugs there. Was there enough business for all of you to make money? Everybody made money. Do you know that at this time who Telly was getting his supply from? No, not really at that time. I just knew he was dealing with the guys in the St. Thomas. I didn't know much about his business, like where he was getting his supplies from. Did you ever see those guys from the St. Thomas? Like once or twice. Did they come onto Josephine Street? Yes. Do you know their names? No, he just went by Bub, Man. Did Telly have any other close friends he would associate with on Josephine or near Josephine Street? Yes. Who would they be? He was staying with George around the corner, and he was staying with Bo. If Telly wasn't around for you to get your drugs, who would you go to? George. Do you know who George was getting his drugs from? Telly. Were you familiar with Frank Hankton? Yes. Who was he? That's Telly's uncle. How do you know him? He used to hang on Josephine. Did you ever learn about a time when Frank Hankton and Telly had a little falling out? Yes, I remember a time when he fell out.